Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about my new favorite way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And maybe want to inspire you to also play it like this. So this all started a few weeks ago when I talked about the Fuvalos coming to the game, which is a card I personally like in terms of how the card works. But what I didn't like, and you can see right here, is the price of the card, which is where at that point I decided to quit the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, at least the TCG, for a while, because it was just too expensive for me. I would have loved to play Temper Dragon. I had the core already, but getting a triple Fuvalos and then also a Perulias and Dominus Impulses wasn't just for me. I just didn't want to invest this amount of money into the game. Obviously, you can also play the game cheaper if you want to, but if I want to play the TCG, I want to play it at the highest level. I want to go to regionals. I want to win these events or be able to win these events, and I don't really enjoy being forced to play and not optimal list, basically. So that is when I looked over what else is there in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Space, and obviously Master Duel. I still play Master Duel. I like the game. I think the future of Master Duel, the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably something like Master Duel, just because of the price and how many players can play it. But then I also found something very interesting called the Edison format, which is something I obviously knew of before, but I was always interesting looking over, and I was like, okay, maybe someday I will play this, and that is what I did. I bought my first Edison deck, went to my first Edison locals. Fortunately, I have one here in the neighborhood, basically, but actually, Edison is something you can definitely go ahead and play on Dueling Book. So Dueling Book, if you're not aware, is this website where you can basically pay the TCG or the OCG or like alternative formats like Edison or Goat. You can play them there, and you basically have to make everything yourself, basically. So there is no computer making the rules for you. You have to know the rules and apply them yourself, which is definitely something that keeps a lot of people off from playing the TCG. I think I also did not like playing the TCG over on Dueling Book, but I have to say that I definitely like playing Edison over on Dueling Book, because Edison, if you're not aware what this format basically is all about, so it's named after the YCS that was in Edison. I think this was around, correct me if I'm wrong here, 2010 or 2012, the format, and it's basically the banners that was in effect at this YCS Edison there, and this is what's being played, and it never really changes. The banners doesn't change. You can see that this is, by the way, the deck that I am currently playing, Vayu Turbo. I bought this and I also play this online. This is basically the format that was played as this YCS Edison, with the banners that never changes, which is something that is very cool about Edison. You can just go ahead, buy a deck, and if you want to play it in person, you can go ahead. Maybe your locals also has an Edison local. There are a lot of Edison locals in my vicinity, basically in my city, and then also a city that is quite near. So there's definitely a big community. This is the biggest alternative format that people love to play. And as I already said, if you don't have an Edison local but still want to play this alternative format, you can do this on Dueling Book, as this is an older format, a very slow format. You sometimes just pass over to your opponent and it's an okay play, or you will like normal summon a monster and set one spell trap and it's a good turn. So which is why this is basically a very nice format to play over on Dueling Book, because there are no super complicated rules. There are obviously rules, things that are different here in Edison, because there is this old ruling in place that was in place at the time that this format was being played. But yeah, this is basically what it is, and so it's very easy to play on Dueling Book. That's what I'm saying. When I played the TCG over on Dueling Book, I always had the problem that the games were very long. You had this long chain links that you have to build yourself. You have to communicate with your opponent a lot, and here you just can play basic plain old Yu-Gi-Oh! With some of the coolest cards and one of the best formats ever. As you can see right here on the side, we are basically on Edison format, by the way, .com, if you're wondering. On the side, you can see a few of the most like prominent decks, being, for example, Black Wings. You can play Cat deck, you can play Diva Heroes, which is a hero deck together with the Deep Sea Diva. You can play Dragons, you can play Fairies, Light Swan, Frogs Monarch is a very famous one. You can play Machine if that's something that you like. You can play, what else is in here? Vayu Turbo, which I just showed you. You can play Zombie, you can play X-Sabers. So very cool, and this was at a time where basically they started to release archetypes. So for example, Blackwing or X-Sabers, Six Samurai you can play. These are like archetypes, and this was the beginning of it. And we can just quickly take a look. We are getting like redirected to Dueling Book, and the reason why I really enjoyed starting with this format is because of some of the cards that you are able to play. Some of the most iconic cards, in my opinion. You are playing Kaios. Kaios is one of the best boss monsters in Edison. You are playing cards like the Card Trooper, which is a card that I played back in the day in my Monarch deck. Chaos Sorcerer, very cool. You can also go ahead and play the Goat format, which there you can play like Luster Soldier, but the Goat format, and this is something I didn't like about it, is not very diverse, as Chaos is by far the best deck there. You can also argue that Blackwing is the best deck here in Edison format, but Edison is definitely way more diverse than is Goat, at least in my opinion. And here you can see you can play Dark Armed Dragon, which is such a cool old card that I always loved back in the day, but wasn't able to afford. Obviously now it's very cheap, and this is another cool point about Edison. If you want to start to play this in real life, you can still play Yu-Gi-Oh! In real life, but don't have to pay a lot, because for my Vario Turbo deck, which is basically what you see here, kind of like some differences maybe, I all in all paid around about 100 euros, but you have to keep in mind that I will basically, if I don't want to, never have to buy any other card again, because the format does not change. It's a bit like chess, right? So it's more like chess than the classical Yu-Gi-Oh! In that sense that the pieces are basically, they are there and they are there to stay. So you have to invest once and then never again. You only have to play or pay the tournament fees if there's a tournament in your vicinity. Then we have cards like Goas, one of the coolest cards ever, obviously not being played today. You can play cards like Brain Control, which is very insane in this format, Heavy Storm, MST, really cool old cards, Bottomless, I always love Bottomless, Dimensional Prison, Mirror Force, and then cards like Return from the Different Dimension, which are just insane. Cards like Royal Oppression, super strong cards that would still be banned if they were here today, and cards like Trap Dust Shoot, which is also insane. And one of the strongest boss monsters in the entire game is actually Stardust Dragon, which is the most iconic synchro, the first real big boss monster synchro that hit the game. One thing that needs to be said about the extra deck when it comes to Edison, Goyo Guardian, for example, also really cool, or like Black Rose Dragon. The extra deck is kind of similar in all the Edison decks. There are differences, but if you have the extra deck once, you can basically use it for every other Edison deck, minus and plus some new cards that you will need to add depending on what you want to play. But yeah, you can make yourself like known with this format if you're interested in that. edisonformat.com, also edison.net and Yu-Gi-Oh! Library are three resources that are very nice. In my opinion, this is the best one to start, as you can click here on decks and then go ahead and check out the different decks that are being played in this format. You can see Dragon Turbo is right here. This was a specific tournament that was dominated by Vario Turbo and Blackwing, but as I already said, there are different decks that you can play and all of them are quite strong. You could also play Frog Monarchs, which is also a deck that I think is so cool. The Monarchs are so like iconic cards from the past. This was my favorite deck back in the day, Monarchs, where I played this with Dekuichi, with the Treeborn Frog. You can play these frogs here. You can play Substitute, which is a super insane frog and one of the strongest boss monsters in the format is Elemental Hero Absolute Zero that you can make with a Miracle Fusion. So many cool plays in my opinion, and I have to say that over the weeks that I now have played Edison in Dueling book as well as at my locals, I really enjoyed that. And there is also a lively Discord community that you can see right here. There are different Discord channels that you can also find on edisonformat.net, where they also you can participate in tournaments if you want to, entries normally for free. You can also win prizes, and you can also, if you want to, go ahead, if there is a YCS in your or near you, you can basically go ahead and play Edison there, because a lot of YCS events have also an Edison format event where there are normally like at least this is what has been told to me, 100 to 200 players at this Edison YCS. It's just a YCS within the YCS, so everyone else is playing the main event and you go for the side event Edison. And the cool thing is that you can win these giant big cards that you might have seen. So the prize pool actually, and this is quite fun, is way better than it is over in the TCG, which is stupid because in the TCG you have like 1,000 players, in Edison you have like 200 players. And if you win this giant card in Edison, it has been told to me that these cards sell for around about 5,000 or 6,000 euros or dollars, whatever you want to price it at. So this is actually insane if you ask me. And yeah, this is Edison, the Edison format, the most famous Time Wizard format. Time Wizard, it's called, all these alternative formats that are basically played like in a different time zone of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are called Time Wizard formats. There's Gold, there's Edison, there's Head, there is what else is there? The format with the Salamangreat and Sky Striker, which I'm blanking on, Toss format, and there are a lot of different formats. You can go check them out over on Yu-Gi-Oh! Library, where you can also check out replays from the most recent tournaments. But yeah, I am totally in love with this alternative format. It's so fun. It's the old Yu-Gi-Oh! If you like to play the old Yu-Gi-Oh! A slower game, and not obviously there are basically no combos in here, right? You have Frog Monarchs, the deck I just had open up here, which they have this Frog combo, which is you make like 7 or 8 steps in order to summon some frogs onto the field. But this is like the longest combo that any of these decks has, and it's not that complicated. And there are just no combo decks here, right? It's just plain old Yu-Gi-Oh! You normal summon a monster, you attack, you worry about a Mirror Force hitting you and something. And I think it's really a cool format that has given me, again, joy when it comes to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Funnily enough, yesterday we were practicing with the team for an event here, a regional event on OTS championship event, basically, with the new format, and I was playing the Azamina Fiendsmith Snake Eyes deck of a friend of mine, and I was playing against him. He played Voices Voice. I was doing my entire combo, and then I passed over to him, and he just gave up. Then he played his entire combo, passed over to me. I just gave up, and then this happens once again. So I win 2-1, and we basically combo the entire time, and the other one scoops it up the moment that the turn passes over, which was so boring and so different here in Edison, where every game definitely feels different. Like every game plays out differently, and you have a lot of options when it comes to cool decks. So yeah, this is a recommendation I have for every Yu-Gi-Oh! Enjoyer, especially for ones like me that have played the game back in the day. This is a Yu-Gi-Oh! At its best, basically. Also because you have an extra deck already, which I think is pretty fun. In the Gold format, for example, you would play without an extra deck, but I like the extra deck. So this is what you have here. You can let me know in the comments whether you also have played Edison. Maybe you have an Edison deck at home, or you play it on Dueling Book. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think these alternative formats are definitely something that you can go ahead and enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! In a different way, in a cheap way, in a very old school way, and I really love it. Let me know in the comments what you think of this, and we will see each other in the next one.